Am I the a-hole for completely canceling my stepdaughter's birthday bash and leaving her with nothing after I broke up with her dad? I, female 43, broke up with my ex Charlie, male 42, last spring after finding out that he cheated with his ex Sandy, female 34. We were together for 3 years, in which I was a very committed stepmother to his kid, Sarah, female 17. She and I never acted like mother-daughter, but I was the go-to adult when she had problems or needed anything because she and her mom don't get along, and my ex would try to help, but his solutions weren't very effective. 1.5 years ago, I completed a very ambitious project for a large company. I started getting paid, but bonuses and royalties only came in this year upon launching. I was so happy and so grateful that I opened accounts for my kids. I decided to gift Sarah the birthday party that she wanted. Her birthday falls in July, and she wanted a pajama party for 25 people, with a big bash, fancy cake, balloons, a DJ, and to go along with her friends to stay in a hotel out of town. This would be for her 18th birthday. So I set up a savings account under my main bank account. Charlie ended up asking me to help him fund a business idea, but I declined for a variety of reasons. We were not married, and I preferred to go solo. His business idea sucked because he was reinventing the wheel and I would be finding everything. We ended up having to close the conversation because he got angry and said he needed a helpful partner by his side, and I responded that I was taught not to give men my money. I know I was harsh and I apologized. I began to feel very insecure when Charlie started to criticize my makeup and personal style. He also praised other women to my face and I felt horrible. Early in the relationship, we had issues because of his communication with Sarah, his ex, which resulted in him promising to cut her off. Fast forward, and I began to notice that Sarah was very active in his family's social media. She gave likes and commented a lot, so I asked him if they were still in contact, because it just didn't make sense. He denied it. I went on a 10-day business trip, but our communication was very off. He would only take my calls until early in the night and became very vague about his daily activities. I couldn't reach him at all for 2 nights on several days apart. He sounded weird when we finally talked. So I lied about having to delay my return date for a few days and arrived 1 day earlier instead. I came home to find used condoms in the trash. My world was shattered and I threw up. His face changed when he saw me home. He also claimed to have been to his mother's house until late. I said I was sick when he asked what was going on and didn't mention anything. But he rushed to take out the trash and to do the laundry. I got into his phone, which I know is wrong, and found hundreds of messages from his ex. Pictures, voicemails, and conversations like they had never broken up. He consulted her about things, told her about his day, etc. Then I found a family chat that made me sick. He, Sarah, and Sandy spent a whole 2 days at a camping site last year when I went to visit family. And there were pictures from last Christmas with his ex at his mother's house. Obviously, he had a full-blown relationship behind my back, and his entire family was aware of it. I directly confronted him, and he tried to deny it until I played one of the voicemails. I couldn't take the humiliation, so I moved out weeks later. Closed the bank account for the birthday bash and kept the money for myself. I cut everything off, including his kid. He reached out in the last week of May. He pleaded with me not to take away Sarah's birthday celebration. I never replied. I know she's a teenager and that she has no control over her dad's actions, but she seems awfully comfortable in her pictures with his ex, and I feel extremely betrayed. Also, there's no way I'm funding a party that I'm not gonna attend for obvious reasons, and I don't want to contribute to a celebration so that his crappy family could eat and drink in my dime. Sarah's mom always had separate celebrations for her, and her gift was supposed to be a camping trip. My ex's family cannot afford a celebration unless they saved way in advance. My best friend says that maybe I can send Sarah a gift if I find it in myself to forgive her actions, but I don't feel like it. His sister sent me a voicemail the other day asking me to please don't turn my back on her niece. I feel awful because I know this was Sarah's dream, but I'm too disgusted to back out from my decision. Am I the a-hole? Edit. The ex he cheated with is not Sarah's mom. She's an ex-girlfriend and much younger. Her mom is also in her 40s. Now for the top comments. Don't send money. They didn't take into consideration your feelings when they were hooking up behind your back, lying to you, laughing, and what else? Why should you? They have to learn that crappy actions have consequences. C'est la vie. They are not your family anymore. You owe them nothing. Period. Best of luck. Especially when the ex is not Sarah's mom. There is no conflict of loyalty here. She doesn't care about your well-being, so why would you care about hers? Yeah, if the ex had been Sarah's mom, I could see where some lax could be given. Her grin would just be happy to be with her mom and dad. Not saying she deserved a party, but at least a gift. But a former girlfriend? Forget that. She made her choice. Not the a-hole. Sarah knew what her father was doing. His family knew and actively engaged in hiding this from you. Let them throw a Motel 6 pool party with dominoes and a boombox. You take care of yourself. It might be healthy for you to cut all ties with this group. She needs to stop talking to them and worry about herself. These people never cared about her. She was strictly an ATM who they thought they could manipulate. Screw all of them. Horrible people. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my 14-year-old son I was not his biological father after my wife had an affair on me? I, 37 male, have been married to my wife, 36 female, for 10 years. When I started dating her, she was a single mom, as her ex had fled the state after she got pregnant. My wife never wanted to tell our son that I was not his biological father. She wanted to wait till he was an adult in his 20s, and we decided on that when we married. I found out last week from one of my friends that my wife was having an affair. I confronted my wife about it. She initially denied it, but after I told her I had physical proof, I lied. She admitted to it. I asked her how long, and she said a few months. And then immediately went to my son and told him everything. I also told him I was not his biological father, that my wife has a tendency to go for these terrible men, and I made a mistake marrying her. My son was shocked and asked my wife if what I said was the truth. My wife said yes. My son then came over and hugged me and was crying, and I told him I will always consider him my son. I am now looking for a divorce lawyer, and my son has completely ignored his mom over the past week. She has tried to communicate with him many times, but he has ignored her every time. To be honest, I think it will really help me in the custody arrangements during the divorce, as my son's preference will be taken into account. My son just wants nothing to do with his mom right now. However, I do sometimes feel a bit guilty about it, but I then remember that I am the one who is the victim. Am I the a-hole? Please make sure to talk with your son to tell him none of this is his fault, and would be a good time to tell him how much you love him. Yes, for sure. I have been doing that a lot over the past week, and will continue to do that. To be honest, we were always close, but we have somehow gotten even closer over the past week. He is also self-assured. He knows it is not his fault and it is his mom's fault, and he has a steely determination and wanting nothing to do with her. If you did not legally adopt your son, then there is no custody. You didn't mention whether you adopted him or not. There could be. If OP is legally married to his mother and he's been supporting the child all these years, he could definitely fight for custody. This is a common problem, and in the US, he would most likely get joint custody. As long as he's fit as a parent, doesn't matter if the child isn't biologically his or if he hasn't adopted legally. Telling your son that you're not his biological father as an FU to your wife would make you an a-hole. But informing him of that fact, as the family dynamic is now changing for his own good, would not make you an a-hole. Like another commenter said, it would come out in the divorce anyway. I don't know what your intention was, so I'm not going to make a judgment here. It will come out in the divorce, but between now and then, the kid could be thinking it's something he did or his fault in some way. At least what OP did makes sure that the kid knows exactly what has happened and not to blame himself. If he had have said, "Hey kid, your mom cheated on me, so I'm out. Peace," then he would be an absolute a-hole. But the fact he is still there for the kid and looking into custody, that isn't the situation. Next story. Am I the a-hole for following through on my threat of divorcing my wife if she didn't start taking care of herself? I am 49 years old. My wife is 48. We have been married for 23 years. When I first met my wife in college, she was energetic, fun, and simply radiant. Her love of life was infectious. We would go hiking, eat at restaurants, go to theme parks, take walks on beaches, and everything else. We both loved the outdoors. About 3 years after we got married, my wife started changing. Instead of going out, she began to become something of a couch potato. She gained weight, started sleeping less, stopped cooking, and frankly became kind of a slob. I put up with this for years. I started cooking on most nights, and I had to hide vegetables in her food for her to eat them. I started doing the dishes every night because I knew she wouldn't. When I went grocery shopping, I abstained from buying my favorite unhealthy foods because I knew she would devour them within hours. I tried to encourage her to start taking care of her health. Nothing changed. 10 years ago, I finally reached my breaking point. I sat her down and gave her an ultimatum. Start taking care of your health, because if it falls apart, I'm not going to be here to take care of you. She was very upset with me, saying in sickness and in health might repeatedly. But I told her I didn't care. Again, nothing changed. I've stayed active. I go jogging every day and maintain a healthy weight. But over the past 5 years, she has reached a point where she frankly kind of disgusts me at times. It takes her 5 minutes or more to get up from her typical position of lying down on a sofa. She has started waddling hunched over. She's 48, but she honestly looks 10 years older and acts 25 years old. A month ago, I finally got her to go to the doctor. Another one of her reckless behaviors is never going in for checkups. They discovered that she's on the verge of type 2 diabetes, has a mild case of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and her blood pressure is concerningly high. Naturally, after receiving such news, on the way home from the hospital, she swung by a fast food restaurant to get some food and a shake. The other day, I sat her down and told her that I simply refuse to be a caretaker for someone who's not even 50 yet. I told her I would be filing for divorce, but left how we do it up to her, either through lawyers or through a cooperative splitting of assets. She's absolutely furious with me, and my parents seem to be on her side. Am I really the a-hole here? Now for the top comments. Not a-hole. She is giving no effort, so why should you? Everyone deserves to be happy. Clearly she isn't, and making bad choices and taking away her happiness. Life is short, and it moves quicker as you get older. Get your happy back. I'm 55, Hub 63. His health was getting in a bad place. Lots of medications. 2 years ago, started getting up at 3:30 a.m. to hit the gym before work. Lost 40 pounds and damn buff. This with a titanium knee. We cooked together again and outdoor active. She needs a counselor and buy-in. If not, she's doing what she wants to. You get to do the same. You have a wonderful relationship. It's clear that you love him a lot. Has your wife been treated for depression? She has to want to be treated. If she doesn't, OP shouldn't have to wait until she does. Info. While I am not qualified to diagnose, this sounds to me like it started with depression. Has she sought therapy or other help in that direction? I've suspected the same in the past, but she has never been diagnosed with depression. She has never made the slightest effort to address any of her health issues. Come to think of it, I don't even remember the last time she went to the dentist. Depression. Regardless of a diagnosis, that's what it sounds like. But as long as she refuses to go to the doctor and acknowledge there is a problem, there is not much she can do. Last story. Am I the a-hole for wanting a post-nup with my husband after finding out he has a child? Recently, my husband's ex from high school showed up, saying they had a child together 13 years ago and their daughter now wants to get to know him. They broke up right after high school and went to different unis. They were already broken up when she found out she was pregnant, and since she wanted to go to med school, her parents offered to take care of the baby, but apparently banned her from telling my husband. I'm 100% supportive of my husband getting to know his daughter, but at the same time, I have some financial concerns. I came into this marriage with more assets. I earn more than him, and financial stability is very important to me. The thought of something happening to him and losing part of my asset to this child terrifies me. Sharing everything with my husband never bothered me before because that's part of marriage, but him suddenly having a daughter is not what I signed up for. Therefore, I want a post-nuptial agreement that protects my assets. When I told this to my husband, he got very frustrated with me, saying that he just found out he has a daughter and he wasn't in her life for the first 13 years. He is still in shock, and one of the first things I do is come at him with a post-nup, making it seem like I'm preparing to divorce him. I think I'm justified in wanting a post-nup, and I've spent the last 2 months being extremely supportive of him and helping him manage the situation. I don't see why wanting a peace of mind for myself is that bad. But one of my friends also said that I'm kind of an a-hole for bringing up a post-nup, and it's not like my husband is likely to die anytime soon that makes me really need this. Am I the a-hole? Not a-hole. This mom could sue him for back child support and current child support. OP needs to ensure everything is based on her husband and not joint income or assets. I think she's smart for this. I think it's important to do it quickly. I would ask for the same. I'm sure he was shell-shocked, but so was she. We are talking paying for school, cars, college, insurance, etc. It's important to get ahead of it. People focus on the emotional aspects of this kind of thing, which isn't wrong, but it's equally important to nail down the legal part. They need to establish the kid's paternity medically and legally, establish child support, update wills, insurance, etc. And updating things legally for OP is a part of that, and no less important than any other part. So yes, it needs to be addressed, and this is no longer a brand new issue. 2 months have gone by. The comment that it's not like OP's husband is likely to die tomorrow is idiotic. The reason these kinds of things are important is that it's not just about the likelihood of something happening. And the fact of the matter is, he could die in a freak accident tomorrow, as could any of us. It's also about the likely consequences of dying without these issues taken care of, which are potentially severe. Small chance of event, but potentially severe consequences if you're not prepared. So you adult up and take care of it. It's why all this stuff exists. Wills, child support agreements, legal documents defining what happens to the kid if one or the other parent dies. It can seem alternately boring or scary, but this stuff exists for a reason. Yeah, this. He absolutely needs to get a paternity test done, reliably, before agreeing to anything. And again, yes, people do die accidentally or of brain aneurysms, etc. Unpredictable sudden stuff all the time. It's a possibility. Not a-hole. You gave him 2 months. The news is big, but he's an adult, and life isn't always gonna be smooth sailing. He had a shock and now he needs to prepare, and so do you. Protect yourself and your assets. Exactly. If she threw out the post-nup after week 1, this would be a different conversation. But after 2 months, it's time to think logistics and the reality of the situation. Different states and countries have different rules on what kids get both for child support and if the worst happens. OP is trying to protect herself from a situation no one would have prepared for. Maybe the state won't require back support because he didn't know. Maybe it'll just look at his income and assets, not what's considered marital assets. Maybe a million other things. OP has no way of knowing right now and needs to be logical instead of emotional about the situation. Am I the a-hole for telling my stepkids I'm not their mom? My husband, 40 male, and I, 36 female, have been together for 8 years now, and our marriage have been rocky. When I met him, he had twins, boy and girl. I love them like they're my children, since it's hard for me to have kids that are mine. My husband and I tried for a baby last year, and I became pregnant but had a miscarriage. I think I'm just not meant to be a new mommy. The kids are 16. The husband's kids haven't seen their mom in years because she left them for a guy in New York, which is so sad because they didn't get to have a relationship with her. The twins call me mom at everything, and we do everything like a little family I always wanted. When I was younger, I always used to tell myself not to date a single father because they might be messing with the mother of their kids, but I took the leap of faith. The other day, my son and daughter wanted to go to the mall with their friends, which was fine because they go to the mall a lot with them. The argument started because of what she was wearing. She wore a very short skirt with a crop top and a jeans jacket. I immediately told her no and to change her clothes because I didn't feel comfortable with her going outside like that. I don't even know where she got the skirt from because anything she gets from the mall she gives me a haul. Her brother didn't even care what she was wearing and just rolled his eyes at me. She was mad and upset. At the top of the stairs, she screamed and told me I wasn't her mom, so I should stop acting like it. Her brother laughed, and that made me feel even worse, so I asked him why it was so funny to him. He said that it's true, that I'm not their mom, so I need to stop acting like I can tell them what to do. This felt like a slap in the face because I basically raised her, and this is what I get? The past months they've been saying horrible things to me. My daughter even told me it was my fault I lost the baby, and she's happy I did. But the next day, I toughened up. I acted like nothing happened that day. I would usually wake them up for school and make them breakfast, but this time, I didn't. I made myself breakfast, because like they said, I'm not their mom. My son had a basketball game that day and I would be the mom to bring snacks for the team, but I wasn't going. My daughter had a cheer competition 2 days after, but I wasn't going. I know y'all might call me petty for this and I would disagree with you. I've been getting up and ignored everyone. I could feel them staring at me every time. Last night, my daughter came up to me and asked me why I didn't show up to her competition, and I told her I wasn't her mom, so why would I? I can already see the YTAs, and I raised my husband's kids and stuff. I told my husband what they said, but he brushed me off. I don't think our marriage is working out, and I've been thinking about a divorce. I feel unappreciated in the place I call home. When I slave in the kitchen to make them food, they order out instead, so I'm the only one eating the food. Was that too harsh? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. They knew what they said, but are now facing the consequences of their mouths. Not the a-hole. Being a step-parent is a thankless job. Luckily, some don't have to live through this, but most of us do. Amen to this. The only time one of my stepdaughters calls or texts me is when she needs me to do something for her. Like do her taxes, use my house to host a baby shower for someone I don't know for 16 plus guests, rewrite her resume. You get it. Oh, and she'll be 28 next month. When I tell her no, I'm a witch. I think this one is not the a-hole. I don't know if they're trying to see your limits so they can see if you're going to leave them like their bio mom, or they just want to be preferred by their bio mom and taking their anger out on you. But I know this is a call for therapy. You're already hurt, and someone can get hurt even more if you don't get help. Your husband must care about this nonsense, and that's why he's the real a-hole in this story. I wouldn't say he's even worse than the kids, because as an adult and parent he needs to do something, and he just sits there and watching the crap show. What you do is petty, but you also show them you care and you're hurt actually. And if they question you again, you can always say you respect their boundaries, so even if you saw them as your own, you will not step on their boundaries and do mommy duties. Honestly, be petty so they can learn not to take granted people who loves them. I think it's the typical teenage a-hole behavior. They would do it in some form with their bio mom if she were there. She's not, so they go after the available parent and hit where it hurts without thinking about the consequences. I hope they will understand what they are doing and apologize. They told her it's her fault she lost her baby and they're glad she did. Not the a-hole. Also, you are only 36. I would not waste any more of my time with him if I were you. Take a year to yourself and try to see if it is possible to have your own family. Harsh to the twins, but they made it clear you are not their mom, and your husband is using you for a ready-made mom, while he gives no care to the fact that you don't have a secure place in his family. And then have kids if you want. My wife was 36 when I met her, and we're having our second. Sometimes things don't work out for a long time, then they do. Next story. Am I the a-hole for saying my 11-year-old stepdaughter isn't allowed around my infant again until she gets therapy? The situation is harder than a normal situation due to us having full custody of my stepdaughter, and her only seeing her bio mom once every 4 to 6 months. However, I have told my husband I'm going to stay elsewhere until he checks his daughter into therapy. For a bit of context, I have been involved in her life since she was 5 and we have had full custody of her for 4 years. I gave birth 5 months ago, and there's been things happening that I'm not okay with, and never will be okay with. These things were not present prior to the baby arriving, so I know it's due to the baby. Such as she's in complete competition with the baby, based on the looks alone. Like she will be holding the baby and say, "I'm so much prettier than you. You will never be prettier than me. You're just jealous that I'm the gorgeous one," etc., all in a baby voice. When my daughter smiles at her, she looks at me and her dad and says, "See, even she agrees with me. She knows she will never be as gorgeous as I am." We've asked her why she feels like she's in competition with a baby, and not for the normal things like attention, but physical looks instead. And she always says things like, "I'm not in competition with her. There's no competition. I'm just gorgeous and need to make sure she knows." The other thing is that I breastfeed, and nearly every time she holds the baby, she comments on my daughter trying to nurse off her. Like if my daughter grabs her shirt, she's immediately saying things like, "She's trying to take my shirt off and get to my boobs," and makes comments to the baby saying, "You're being inappropriate. Do not try to take my clothes off. You're weird. Those are my boobs." And she's 100% serious. Like she's really trying to accuse an infant of trying to strip her. I've talked to her about it. I've talked to my husband about it. I've talked to both of them at the same time. I've blatantly said that her attitude surrounding the baby makes me uncomfortable and untrusting. But apparently I'm blowing this out of proportion because it's not even a big deal. It is though, to me anyways, because it's every time she's near the baby. But today I had gone out to the car real quick, and when I came back in, my husband told me that his daughter had a baby in her room. I go in and see my stepdaughter laying with a baby in a nursing position with her back turned to me. I walk in and ask what is going on, and she immediately acts disgusted and says she's trying to take my shirt off again, and moves away from the baby and physically pulls her shirt down, big t-shirt that she had pulled up. I grabbed my baby and started packing. Husband comes in and asks where we are going. I tell him me and the baby are going to stay elsewhere until he gets his daughter into therapy because of what I just witnessed, and the fact that I don't trust her around my infant anymore. I told him I had tried talking to him and her both several times, and I'm done talking. He gets her help, or I'm not coming back home. He says I'm blowing this out of proportion, and he is sure that it wasn't what it looked like, and that I'm being ignorant for being willing to take the baby away from him and his daughter during crucial bonding months. I told him if he had taken me seriously to begin with, then it wouldn't have come to this. He can visit. She cannot until she's in therapy and working through her obvious issues. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Dad needs to understand between her being a tween and puberty and becoming more aware of her body and hormones and being in a home with a breastfeeding infant for the first time, and all of that, she's going to have issues that talking to a professional about would be good. She's hyperfixated on appearance and breastfeeding, and puberty is a beast, but adding hyperfixation in, she needs a professional, preferably a woman. Not the a-hole. I agree with all points. This poor child needs therapy before she causes some serious issues. I will say it is common and normal. I just want to stress that. For girls that have been fed/are seeing it, to nurse their baby dolls, but never try to do it with an actual baby. Mind you, I've only ever seen this in children younger than 10, more in the age range. I'm a little worried about what her life was like at her mom's. It sounds like the mom has no custody for a reason, and I'm a little worried that the mother did something in front of her that would make her think this is normal. OP should get her to a therapist ASAP to see what is going on, because this is not normal. If she has no mental issues, then there's probably something that occurred near or to her at her mom's. Do you love her? Would you be willing to spend time with her one-on-one? This could also be a reaction to you giving birth and not spending enough time with her. Pediatric nurse here. OP, under no circumstances and in no way are you wrong or overreacting. Your infant is entirely dependent upon you for its safety, since your husband made it very clear that he either doesn't care or is absolutely in denial that there is a threat. Also, statistically, the most dangerous person to any given child is typically a family member, not a stranger, a member of their own family. So everyone saying your stepdaughter is your daughter too is ignoring the fact that one child has become a potential danger to the other. The fact that they are family and young does not give them the right to do something you know is wrong to another child. Do not ignore your instincts. They are telling you the right thing. Also, speaking from personal experience, your child will never forgive you if you force them to be in the same place with somebody that is dangerous. That is betrayal that lives with them forever. You are supposed to protect your daughter. Failing that is not something that they will ever forget. Your stepdaughter does not need protection. She needs help. No, it is not your duty to protect her too, because she is not the one possibly in danger here. Yep, worked in a long-term locked-in psych/behavior unit for boys ages 7 to 17. And by far the most common source of physical/sexual abuse is a family member. And many times it's an underage sibling. Kids are sociopaths by default isn't a joke. The brain is still developing. It needs healthy boundaries and guidance. She has some issues, and it comes off like she has been abused in some way herself, or has some weird fixations that somebody her age should not have. Not the a-hole. Good on you to protect yourself and your baby. I'm surprised this is the only reply mentioning the stepdaughter possibly having been abused. OP, her behavior has so many abuse flags waving. Dad needs to get her in therapy to address anything that might have happened to her and her behavior towards the baby. I've considered this as well, but admittedly, I don't know when that could have ever happened. Not saying it didn't happen, of course. Her mom doesn't have any boyfriends. She's a traveling nurse, which is why she barely sees her daughter. So when she does visit there, it's only them. When she stays at her grandmother's, there is no one around outside of her grandmother, and I don't think they would be inappropriate. They're both extremely concerned with her behavior, at the very least. The only other people she is around is me, the baby, and her dad. She doesn't do sleepovers. Her friends are allowed here, but we do not allow sleepovers because she is, by her definition/admission, lesbian. She's been dating Madison for 2 years. When they are broken up, she's always dating other girls. So we don't allow sleepovers because she's already kissing people and yada yada. So I don't know when it would have happened. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my ex-wife I'm not going to help our children learn her native language? I'm male 32. I'm about to be divorced from my wife, female 34 of 7 years. Together we have 3 kids with ages ranging from 2 to 5. My wife and I have an interracial marriage, with myself being Italian-American and my wife being the first person in our family who was born in Japan. She was raised speaking Japanese in home, and that is the language she uses to chat with her siblings. However, she was raised in the US and speaks native English as well, so there is no issue of her understanding of English. While we were originally dating, and again when we got married, I asked her if she wanted me to learn Japanese to better fit in with her family. Not only did she tell me that learning Japanese wasn't necessary, she also has gone no contact with half her Japanese-speaking family over the years, so I didn't try to learn Japanese for years. Once we had kids, her tune changed, and it became important to her to continue her culture by teaching the kids Japanese. I bought the Genki books, I tried Primsler, and I'm proud now to say I speak Japanese at a level of a 2-year-old Japanese child. I even taught our kids their first Japanese word, which roughly translates to up or uppy. But I always feel behind, relative to where I would like to be, and the kids struggle to integrate into Japanese social situations. For a while, we were talking about doing some drastic changes to help the kids learn Japanese, such as moving to a city with more Japanese people, sending her away to Japan with the kids every summer, getting an au pair from Japan, etc. Separately, my wife gave me an ultimatum for an open marriage, and I simply couldn't feel comfortable with that, so a divorce seems like my only option. In a divorce, my main goals are A, to make sure my kids don't get a bad situation, B, to make sure that I am addressing my own needs. This came to a head recently when my soon-to-be ex-wife came to me and asked about when we wanted to start moving to the city with more Japanese people. I said that I wasn't sure that was going to happen, and she got upset, saying I had already agreed to move. I told her that I had agreed to move with my wife, and that I didn't want to move several hours away from my ex-wife. She then said that it was for the kids, so they could learn Japanese. I said I wasn't raised speaking Italian, and I only cared about the kids learning Japanese because I love her and wanted to support my wife. But if we are getting divorced, I need to suppress those feelings of love and ask myself what I want. And the answer is, I don't care if my kids can speak language I can't speak. But a part of me is concerned that my kids will wish we did more to teach them Japanese when they are older. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. She agreed to monogamy and changed her mind. You agreed to move to a city based on the assumption you would be moving as a family. She changed the arrangement, not you. She wants to move there to be with other Japanese people. It has nothing to do with making a better life for your children. Your children will not be harmed by not moving. Your ex-wife can teach your kids about her culture as she wishes. She can move if she wants to, but she cannot force you to move. If she tries to leave with the kids, try for full custody. If she is upset about splitting the family in between cities, remind her that the family is fractured because of her. Your ex-wife is acting in her own interest and is trying to guilt you into harming your life so that she can feel better. If she wants to be selfish, she should be ready to accept the harm she does while doing so. Does she think that your children will benefit more from being better at a second language or from having a familial support system? She's acting out of self-interest. Listen, try to keep physical custody of their passports and speak to a lawyer to make sure, if possible, that she isn't going to take them on any trips to Japan. If she decides to move back there, this country doesn't care about U.S. custody agreements. She'll get custody and you'll never see them again. It seems unlikely that she would move back there when she's never lived there in the first place. I don't understand how the children can't learn Japanese from their mother. Young kids learn the language their parents speak to them, so why don't your ex-wife talk Japanese to them at home when she has the kids, and you can talk English with them when you have them? They can later have extra Japanese classes to support their learning, but the language should start at home. That said, none of this is your problem anymore. Your responsibility is to take care of your kids by getting a fair custodial agreement in a divorce and then sticking to your part in it. Your ex is responsible for her share, and teaching Japanese she's insisting on.